Okay, CGTantra as a community consists of students and professionals both. What message could you provide them with from your end? Anything that you could talk? Probably not a lot of students are aware of Houdini as a tool, as a very effective tool. Okay, so probably in that context and in general, your experience that you've had, what message could you give to these students and the professionals? CGTantra.
Try that one, Richard?
So we have a lot of clients in Hollywood who use Houdini primarily for visual effects. It's certainly the leading software there to do the most sophisticated and original VFX work. So for students, this is really an important tool set to understand. It can help their careers by giving them much more latitude than you typically get in a tool set. So it's a very advanced piece of software that's now accessible to so many more studios. So they can do their research on Houdini and they'll see its reputation. They'll garner its reputation very quickly, and this is very good for their careers. It's also very good for schools from a teaching point of view because of how open the software is. It's ideal for students to understand the fundamentals in animation and computer graphics. So regardless of what tools they end up using in their career, this is a really good foundation for them.
And I'd add to that, Houdini itself as a technology is a wonderful platform to learn CG, as what Richard said. But what really, when I'm demonstrating the software, what really comes to bear is the proceduralness of the software. We've been doing procedural for over 20 years now, and we know it better than anybody else. We're industry innovators in that area. And that's just a word. But where I come to bear is using the software. The number of ways that you can use Houdini, using these nodes to build up a procedural paradigm, no programming. And that's one of the things that a lot of students are under the impression that if they have heard of Houdini, they've heard that it requires a certain level of skill. Where in fact, it actually just requires an artistic ability and an ability to build your own tool sets, to use these tools and to craft your visual effects. And I use the word craft because essentially that's what a Houdini artist does. They build their own visual effect, as opposed to pressing a few buttons on the shelf and manipulating a few parameters in the stack. So it offers them a wealth of possibilities.
So there's not a lot of programming that a student would need to know as a base to use Houdini.
I answer that by looking at our own users. The majority of our own users only have mastered 20 to 30 operators. No code. They know how to write simple expressions that aren't even complicated and can be taught in a matter of a day or two.
Yeah, more and more studios are adopting our software because they don't want to have an R&D team backing it. So essentially it's a little bit like a pipeline in a box.
Absolutely.
And another point I'd like to make is that we are in great need of Houdini people all over the world. The demand is very high, so any students who have career aspirations using Houdini in Hollywood studios or anywhere, it'll certainly help open the door for them.
Absolutely.
That's very good. One of the best things is that, looking at a software like Houdini, probably students would think that I need to be a programmer and I need to probably know this, and that's why they would be reluctant. So it's a very good thing in that part, because it will be very user-friendly.
Well, essentially, Houdini presents to the user a node network,
exactly.
Not dissimilar to Shake or Nuke. So if you can use those programs, which a vast number of students are being taught in school, Houdini really is just a simple step to the side. And you realize instead of working on imagery, you're working with geometry. And you get the same flexibility and a lot more. And one more thing that Houdini does for me, there's two things I think of when I'm using Houdini. One is the proceduralness. The second one is the number of relationships that I can create effortlessly in the software. And I can have dependencies that tie in geometry to the compositor, to the renderer, to whatever I want, to a dynamic simulation. And I change just one element that entire process and everything else updates. So we're never deleting history. There is no such thing as history. It's the networks themselves and the relationships you can create, and that's what gives you a procedural workflow.
That's brilliant. An artist software. That's what
Artist software. As a matter of fact, I like to always quote current president of the software, Kim Davidson, and it goes all the way back, even before Prisms was born, when Side Effects, even before Side Effects, when we had a company called Omnibus, who both Greg Hermanovic and Kim Davidson worked for, and their philosophy was, the design of the software is it was meant to move geometry. It was designed as an animation software from the get-go. Everybody else was designed as a modeling software from the get-go. And Houdini has followed in those footsteps, so it is an animation package first. And I don't see that changing ever.
I'm very hopeful that after seeing the interview and whoever has heard of Houdini, students will also adapt and start using it as a tool.
Yes.
Anything
In fact,
so
they
far?
can get a free version of our software on the website. It's called Apprentice.
Okay.
So it has actually the full power of the master version, other than a watermark and some limitation on the rendering. But other than that, all the functionality is there. So access to tutorials and so on. So there's a tremendous opportunity for self-learning there if anyone is curious about it. And it's we'll hear a lot more about Houdini in the coming years in India.
We hope so.
We expect it'll be very, very well received in India, given the aspirations that are here and the quality of talent and the roadmap that India is trying to pursue.
Yeah, just one of your comments about the idea that one had to be a programmer to use Houdini. Not so. Last year when we came out with Houdini 9, we created a new interface that's much more industry
familiar. Industry familiar.
You're right, industry familiar. So with a really streamlined shelf tools and also workflow, so it's much easier for people to pick up, and it's really familiar to them when they see it, so they're not taken aback.
Yeah.
So.
And I think another big piece of the puzzle that we've put in play in 2008 is FBX. We now have support for both FBX and AMP, so that makes it a lot easier to exchange ideas and information from the various products to Houdini and back again. So that's helped people try Houdini out and actually pass data in. And chances are they'll keep the data in there because they actually start to enjoy the software. And we've also have a few other formats that we support as well. So it makes it a lot easier for both students and professionals to integrate Houdini into a pipeline very easily.
Definitely. Thank you so much for your time and for the interview.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for your interest.
Probably have to edit that quite a bit. It's very